boys? I'd come home and I'd be like,
Where are the boys?
Where are the boys? And she's like, well, I don't know. I mean, what do you mean you don't know? Well, they said something, but I don't know what they said. Well,
watch and subscribe.
Thank you.
so anyway, we're fast forwarding just a little bit. We are now married in this. Like I said, we got 3 kids. We've got a lot going on in our lives. My wife has her own business doing data. We decided to do that so that we had a stay-at-home mom.
Which worked out good because Trina came every other week on Fridays.
Yeah.
And so I was or was it Thursday night actually?
Yeah. Well,
she came Thursday nights, yeah. So I would be home with her on Friday and then, home for the kids before and after school. So that worked out well.
yeah, it helped. Although my wife is a workaholic and it's not always, the big joke in our house is,
Don't ask Mom anything when she's working.
I would say to the kids, don't you dare ask your mom to do something. I would like any kid, they would be grounded. And
well, this was mainly the boys because Trina didn't live with us full time.
Yeah, but they would be grounded. They, couldn't do anything. I had my own business. I'd come home and I'd be like,
Where are the boys?
Where are the boys? And she's like, well, I don't know. I mean, what do you mean you don't know? Well, they said something, but I don't know what they said. Well, they knew because their mom was a workaholic and she's an intense worker. And so they would ask a question like, Mom, we're going up to Bank 1 and we're going to rob it. I got a ski mask and Andy's got a gun. We'll be right back. And she would say yes, just because she's working.
Yeah, we finally had to sit down and tell them, okay, if you ask me something when I'm working, you're in trouble.
Right, because she had no clue. But at any rate, it did work out good. I owned a business. My wife owned a business. We were pretty successful.
Yeah.
I had a good life. Things were moving very good in that way. Like I say, the kids got along. We all got along. We
camped a lot.
How my daughter got into horses and how my kids got into horses is my dad and I would put on ranch rodeos. We first started at 5-star stables and we'd put on ranch rodeos every weekend.
Every weekend, yeah.
And Trina, she'd ride in the events, and she was, believe it or not, a little town boy. She would tag the cows and get cow poop on her, and she'd be cleaning stalls, and we'd have to beg her to take a bath. And Chris was the same. He just loved running out there. And then we also,
and Andy did it too.
Yeah, Andy did it too.
Andy did it too.
We had our own horse, and all the kids rode them, and my dad had horses out there, and we were also putting on ranch rodeos at another ranch called Triple C Ranch, and we did that for a number of years.
Yeah, several years.
And it was a very good bonding thing, and very family oriented. Grandpa's involved, grandma's involved, we're involved. My wife was the bookkeeper.
Yeah, I took in all the money for the event and kept track of everything and worked in the kitchen area giving people hot chocolate, coffee, whatever,
and
sodas.
People would ride for prize money, so she'd also divide out the prize money and stuff like that. So that was a good thing. That's kind of how the horses got started. And I don't know where we go from there other than, life was just going on. We owned our own house and things were moving. We had our kids in private school and then
after a certain time, when we moved to Rockford together, I got away from my meetings.
Or AA meetings.
Yeah, and I ended up, after only about 4 months of us being married, I had a drink.
Yeah.
He thought it was nothing, and it was like I couldn't believe I had drank. I had had 5.5 years sober when we got actually married.
Yeah, and I like she said, I took her sobriety for granted because I didn't know the woman that struggled with drugs and alcohol. I didn't. I only knew sober Tina. So, like I said, I knew what an alcoholic was. She wasn't. She was just always confused. I took for granted her sobriety, and AA was the furthest thing from my mind. It was just a impediment in our lives, a time to take that out. But we even got to start going, she talked me into Wednesday nights. Kids were old enough, and hey, let's go up to a bar that we could actually walk to from our house. And she'd say, we'll just have a couple drinks, play pool. We had a great time. And
yeah, we did that for about a year, and 2 years, but it progressively got worse and worse.
She found more and more events, like sex bingo at Shooters one night.
Karaoke on Thursday nights.
Yeah. So every night she had an event, and it's like, okay, maybe this is not going as I was suspecting.
But that is jumping ahead quite a bit because the kids were older.
Yes.
Starting to be older.
Yeah, it wasn't like we were leaving, kids with filthy diapers in a
they weren't
dog dish bowl and saying, have at it, kids.
No, and that's a pretty big jump from when I took that drink to when we started going to the bar. That was several years in between because I tried to go right back to AA and just couldn't get it again. So then we started attending church that had a program. And we did that for many years.
Yeah. Yeah, we were going to church quite a bit.
Yeah, a couple times a week. And we were involved in an addictions program at that church. Oh. And the kids went along with us for those several years. I
actually helped in the men's ministry. I never struggled with an addiction, knock on wood. So I helped in the men's addiction program. They had what they called a discipleship program where they had an old nursing home they had took over, and they were taking men from all around the United States. I mean, a preacher that was addicted to crack cocaine, a congregation of 13,000, a preacher from New York that was addicted to heroin,
it can hit all walks of life.
A doctor that owns 7 clinics in Ohio, who ended up being addicted to opiates. And when they arrived at our church, they were truly broken men, homeless, family,
lost everything.
No one had anything to do with them. It was like out of desperate, So it was a pretty stringent program, and I helped in that men's program, and I had a construction company, and I would hire some guys for some of my construction projects, and I'd also help them start a construction business within that foundation to try and get these men skills. I did that for several years.
Yes.
And I was part of the youth ministry for a while. Me and I can't think of his name anymore, but so we did youth ministry. The church had like 10 acres, and on Saturdays I'd take the kids out and we'd play paintball. We loved playing paintball at the church. It was all wooded, and we'd play. I had, in fact, it's like I'd have 6-year-olds showing up to want to play paintball, and I'm like, okay, if I can shoot you and you don't cry, you can stay. The parents would come up and, are you kidding? No, well, if I don't want them to be out in the field, and the next thing I know they're crying, so if I can shoot them now and they don't cry, we're fine. So anyway, we got into paintball quite a bit. In fact, I took the boys
to D-Day.
D-Day in
In
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, there was like, I think that year there was 6,000 participants in that, and we had a blast doing that. So,
And that's where the kids were enrolled in school,
yeah.
at the church, in private school. The boys were.
Yes.
Again, Trina didn't live with us, but she went to
Full-time.
church when she was with us.
Yes, correct. So, that was then, and then her drinking hadn't quite got out of control yet, and
But then the boys' dad.
then the boys' dad, that was, like I said, that was just kind of in and out of their lives, and me and him would go around and around, and I says, he's like, oh, I want to come pick the boys up, and I'd be like, you say that, and then you show up for 1 or 2 visits, and then
Oh, we'd even bring the boys to him sometimes.
yes, we would. And I said, so, this last time he kind of came around, I says, look, just promise me you do what you're going to say you're going to do. When you say you're going to pick up the boys, pick up the boys. Well, that lasted, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
3 weeks. And, and I just got tired of putting the pieces together. But at any rate, he didn't bother trying to have visitations again.
No, because he was an alcoholic and drug addict, still in the throes of it all, and
In and out of prison.
yeah.
Truly, the addiction had got the best of him. I could get along with him when he was sober, and I didn't have an issue with him. He was a good, decent guy, but when addictions take control of someone, character can be thrown out the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, unfortunately, he ended up committing suicide, which, unbeknownst to me, ended up being
Devastating
devastating
to the boys.
for our family dynamics.
Yeah.
It was a snowball that I didn't see coming, that it turned into an avalanche eventually. The older boy started experimenting with drugs. He started experimenting with drugs, and he was sharing them with our younger son. Fortunately, none of them shared with our daughter.
Right. And they were 14 and 11 when their father died.
So
critical ages, and it was their first day of school that year.
Yeah.
That we had to wake them up that morning and tell them. I got the call at like 4:30 a.m. and we had to wake them up before their first day of school that year and tell them what happened.
Yeah. And so then, like I say, things kind of escalated. Chris could be a very difficult child
Yes.
to begin with. He was misdiagnosed for many, many years. They said he had
ADHD.
Yeah, okay. And all these other things. Well, the truth be known, he was a severe bipolar. And so he was misdiagnosed all these years. And we had so much behavioral problems. And he had such low self-esteem that he ended up going to an alternative school.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though when we tested him, he tested above his grade level in every aspect. But his own confidence in himself, he thought he was a loser.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but Chris, you're not a loser. You're testing above your grade average and everything. So you're not dumb in that. But, sometimes we could be our own worst enemies. And it got to the point we ended up having to send him to a dual purpose.
By the age of 15, because he was doing drugs then, getting in trouble, and having a lot of severe emotional issues. He had tried to take his life a couple times during this time, and then I went back to full-blown drinking. We started going to the bar, and having some fun. It was kind of an escape for us a little bit. We stopped attending church.
Yep.
And everything just really blew up.
Yeah. So.
All the way around, because my drinking got way out of control. I felt like I couldn't help the boys, and I just felt really defeated. And, you know, we could come up with all kinds of excuses, but...
And I started feeling really alone because all she cared to do was drink.
Yeah.
And we really started having conflict. I'd be like, well, we're going to be home by this, and then it would be a lot of FU words.
Yeah.
I was the beer Nazi or whatever.
Yes, you were the beer Nazi.
Because
Which I didn't appreciate.
Yeah. It got to the point where I wouldn't go out with her anymore.
Yeah.
And I would be like, she, bubbly personality, and everyone knew her and that. And she even got to the point where she was friends with one of the bar owners. And one night I woke up and she's not even home yet. And it's like 4:30 in the morning, and I ended up kicking the bar door open to their shock. And she goes, "Hey, you doing nothing wrong." I'm like,
we were just sitting there drinking.
Correct.
I was drinking with the other alcoholics.
And anyway, I drug her out of there, and I said, you know, something's got to change here.
But then about that time is when Chris went into treatment. We had to put him in treatment, and I started getting help. I started going back to AA.
And so, yeah, so Chris is in treatment. She's going back to AA. I'm trying to put bubble gum on everything. Our older son's struggling
Bad.
with everything also.
Yeah. Drugs, alcohol.
Trina is the only one. We were able to really kind of keep her out of that.
Well, because she was getting to an age where sometimes she didn't even come on weekends because she was with friends and had stuff going on.
Yeah, dance.
You know, not all the time, but
a dance.
We were able to keep her more sheltered from everything.
Yeah, and a little less, you know, that. But at any rate, and then Chris ran away from the treatment facility.
For 5 days, it was horrible. We couldn't find him and the other kid. He ran away with another kid.
And then we took him to another treatment thing, which he really liked there, but conditions of probation for some of the trouble he got in, they wouldn't allow him to stay at that one. He had to go back and complete the other one, otherwise he would have to go to juvenile detention, and it was kind of a mess. And against our judgment, we didn't leave him in the treatment center that I thought was helping him more in the head atmosphere, where I thought he needed the most help. And she thought he needed the most help.
Yeah.
Too. But at any rate, he had to go back to that treatment facility, and he did end up graduating. We had to pull a little bit of strings for that. Things were going good. He came home.
Well, things weren't going good. He just wasn't making any more progress and he was actually starting to slide backwards, and in an effort to get him discharged from the treatment center before something severe might have happened, we all agreed that he would be done with treatment.
Correct. And he did come home, and things were going good. I had a company. He was working for me and my brother-in-law. He was one of my foremans, and I put him on his crew. I had a couple crews, and he was on his crew, and they really got along good, and he was making good money.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we were getting him back re-enrolled in school and stuff like that. But he did have to do an outpatient treatment. And one night I dropped him off at the outpatient treatment, and then I get a call that he left the outpatient treatment in a huff. And I kind of get the story about this, and he had a girlfriend at the time, and he found out some things that happened with his girlfriend that would be devastating, especially if you think it's the love of your life. And he ended up going over to his brother's house. I went and picked him up there, and we stayed up with him. We started to watch a movie, and then the cable went out.
Well, he was going to meetings too, so
Yeah.
he did end up calling his sponsor and go to a meeting that night.
Yes, he went to
And then came home, and we didn't want him sitting upstairs, so we had him come watch a movie with us.
And I went up there for a little bit, and we...
Well, why don't we pause now?
Okay. Yeah.
This is going to be a few segments, so we're going to pause, and this will be in the next... We'll keep talking about all this in the next episode.
It was a huge buzz.